Hello, it's Ed. Thank you for joining me. Hope you're well. You find me in a very chilly studio today, so I'm going to try and keep this introduction brief. We're going to get out into Stockport and try and make the most of this low winter sun that we've got. I want to try out a new camera, very exciting. And I also want to discuss, I always have a discussion topic for my videos. What I want to discuss today is that old topic, is size important when it comes to photography? And there are two aspects of that I'm going to touch on. But why am I doing that today? Well, those of you that watched the video before last that I did, that was all about me finding a new film carry, an everyday carry to replace my Olympus XA. I won't tell you how it went because you can watch that video if you haven't already seen it. But I was talking about what I needed as a carry around, and I touched on the idea that maybe I actually needed a digital carry everywhere camera, because this Lumix G100, which has done such good service for me over the last few years, finally this camera has packed in. It is dead, and so I had to get a replacement, and this is what I came up with. Now that is the GF5, which is many generations before the G100, so you'd think would not be such a good camera, but actually, can you see it's a little bit smaller? The other thing that's a little bit smaller is its resolution. It's about half the resolution of the G100. Is that going to be a problem? These are the things that we are going to talk about when we're out in Stockport taking pictures. But let's get out there. Before I do, I'm afraid, much as I love you, G100, I'm going to have to use you for parts, because this lens is no good on you anymore. It is going to be transplanted to this new GF5. Not new, I don't think you could buy one new anymore, but very good value second hand. We'll talk about that. It's still dinky, isn't it? Let's get out into Stockport. So we're walking into Stockport from the studio now, and I don't know if you can tell how cold it is. Can you see my breath? Oh, it is really, really nippy. But yeah, the key thing about size being important in terms of physical size of the camera is whether it fits into a pocket. So one of those pockets has my Olympus XA2 actually in it, same size as the XA pretty much, and the other pocket has the new GF5, which is which? Okay, time for the reveal. GF5, Olympus XA2. So there you go. You see, they're almost the same size. Obviously the little pancake lens that you have to put on the GF5 makes it a tiny bit bigger, but there is a big advantage in having changeable lenses. But that advantage is outweighed by the fact that if it doesn't fit in a pocket, you can't take it with you. When I got the G100, I had a slightly bigger pocketed winter coat and I could just fit the camera in. But when I got this new one a year or two ago, I couldn't carry the G100 in my pocket anymore. I had to carry it in my backpack or have it slung around my neck. And that meant I just didn't take it out with me, which is one of the reasons, other than my love of film, why I turned to the little Olympuses. But this, it's so small, even with the pancake on it, it fits into my pocket, and that means it will always be there. So the first picture I took was this post box. And as you can see, it's not a bad picture. It's slightly overexposed using the camera's metering, but this is a raw file straight out of the camera without any alterations. If I do a little bit of work in Adobe Camera Raw, you can see that I can get back those highlights. There's plenty of dynamic range there. The colour rendition looks good, and so for a first picture out the camera, it is promising. The second picture I took was my usual reference picture, which is the church tower overlooking Hillgate, taken from the marketplace. I initially took a landscape picture, but I think portrait actually was nicer. And if you look at this, you can see that there is again some slight blowing out of the highlights, but that is again something that can be got back using the raw file. And yeah, I think that's a really nice image as well, and it shows good colour tones. There's plenty of detail there. So that's all great for landscapes. What about what I really do, which is street photography? So one thing I know I'm going to miss about the G100 is its silent shutter, because you had the option of using just the electronic shutter and not the mechanical one, and that meant you could be very, very quiet and not disturb what was going on when you were taking a picture. This one, you have the traditional click of the shutter, which is reassuring, and I do like that sound. It is kind of a nice thing to have, but there are moments when you just think, do I want to go, or would I rather just go? Well, he didn't look like he was too bothered with the shutter noise, did he? Unfortunately, I didn't get the moment as I would have liked to have done. I've got the bleacher beacon coming out of his head, which is kind of an interesting look, but not what I was going for. But that is my fault, not the camera's. I could have set the camera to take multiple shots and gone click, 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 and maybe got the perfect moment, but then maybe he would have heard me. This other shot I took just at the same time, and again, it's got really nice colour tones to it. It's frozen the action nicely. The camera again giving remarkable results when you think of its age. I think this is a camera from 2012 or somewhere thereabouts, and it's great results. And this one, the last of this group, I set the camera to manual exposure and I'm really pleased with it. I've caught the guy in mid-stride in the little shaft of light before he goes into the darkness. The colours are good, the tones are good, but I wonder what would happen if I blew it up to gallery size. Okay, so now might be a good time to address the elephant in the room, which is, does size matter in terms of resolution? Well, if you're shooting for a client and they demand a certain resolution, yes. But as a photographer, I would say, no, it probably doesn't. This has about 10 megapixels, which is around half what the G100 had. The film photographs that I take, there's a lot of debate about how many megapixels there is in 35mm film. People sort of say around about 20 now. Depends on the film, depends about the conditions, all that sort of stuff. But the scans that I do of my film photographs are only around 7 megapixels, and those pictures look lovely. You don't have to print them large. The thing is, when I started off, I wanted to be in galleries, I wanted to be famous, and I felt I needed to be able to print to 16 by 20 at least to be able to make that happen. I think a lot of the competitions that I entered, they wanted big prints. So I felt that that was important, but ironically, the last exhibition that I was in, the print that I had was a 6x4 and it was very well received, it sold. So I think this is going to do me just fine. So just after making that speech, I took this picture and I think it's a really nice one, but it matters that you've got all the detail. So let's zoom into more than 100% and see if there's enough detail to make it work. And there is. The figure is perfectly detailed. You can see the texture of the coat. You can read the writing on the sign behind her, and it shows that you don't need 100 megapixels to make most photographs work. There are some pictures that fall apart if you blow them up beyond their natural resolution, but it's very rare that we actually get the opportunity to do that. There are some pictures that I would like to take an exhibit in a gallery, and they would only work if they were at life size, because you need your whole field of vision to be taken up by that image so you get that overwhelming sense of reality. But how often can we actually do that? And how often is it actually important in a photograph? For the kind of photography that I do, I don't think I need that kind of resolution on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is a scene that I've shot many times before, but it's always different because the light just forms these amazing geometrics, and there's always something different to get. So let's see how it looks today. Yeah, I quite like the hard shadows here. Again, I've used manual exposure to make sure that I've got the hard black shadows rather than I think the camera would have given me a more muted scene. And just after I took this picture, a couple of postmen came out of that underground car park, I think it is, and I got this really nice shot. Now, I think the red of their jacket is slightly overdone and the blue of the sky is slightly overdone, but I could probably get that back if I did a little bit more work in Photoshop and make it look a little bit more real if that's what I wanted. But if we zoom into the image, again, we can see that there's plenty of detail there in the faces of the posties. And this was a very difficult scene. I've had to boost the shadows a little bit to bring them out into that hard light. So I think this is a scene that even my good old G100 would have struggled with. So time for a little rest and a good opportunity to tell you a little bit about the sad history of the G100, because I don't think we should let its passing go unmentioned. Now, how did it die? Well, first the battery life started to die, and that was very early on. Then the on-off switch started to die. Then the back screen died, and then this dial stopped working. That was all just about manageable because I found workarounds. But then whatever had gone wrong with this dial obviously started to go really strange. So it was, without being touched, changing all the time. So whenever you took a picture, you had no idea what the shutter speed and aperture was going to be. And so that, sadly, is why it's time to say goodbye to it. But it has done really, really good service. Yeah, it survived the breaches, it survived the throwing down the stairs in frustration, it survived so many things, but all good things must pass. Yeah, I hated this when I first got it, grew to love it, and I will really miss it. I will miss its 20 megapixels, but hopefully the 10 megapixels of the replacement camera will do the job, and the slightly less sophisticated controls won't be too much of a problem. But let's find out by taking some more of those. So one of the reasons people upgrade their cameras is to get faster autofocus, and obviously this older camera will probably have less good autofocus than the G100, but it's actually really fast. You can't get the benefit of it on this lens because this lens is a really slow focusing lens. It's a pancake and it's not designed for fast focusing, so it's really slow, but that's because of the motor in the lens, not because of the focusing. I still prefer manual focus when I'm just out and about. It's quieter, it's quicker. You can set a hyperfocal distance and forget about it. So I'm going to try and get some street photos, proper street photos, and let's see if we can switch to manual focus one-handed. And yes, I could, and after doing so, I got this shot. I've caught the figure in that little square of white light. There's the interesting also spotlit sign which says "See you," which is exactly what we're doing, and then you can see the background all clear. There is no shutter shake, there is no blur, the colours look fantastic, and I'm really pleased with this shot, and it's one that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't had a little pocket camera that I could just nip out at a moment's notice. A big SLR, I'd have missed the moment. And after taking that one, I got this one, which again is a really nice little image. I don't know if you can see my shadow there falling on the person's bag and all the different colours and the lines of the street footage and the geometrics. Again, another lovely little picture that I was able to get without drawing any attention to myself, and one that I would have struggled to get with an SLR. So I'll tell you one thing I'm really liking about this camera. I've been shooting for quite a while now, and it's only just gone down to 1 bar gone of the battery. Now, I'm using the same battery from the G100, it takes the same batteries. That would be empty, the G100. So the battery life is really, really good for this. And as a carry-around, that's important that you'll be able to have battery power when you need it. You don't have to carry a pocket full of batteries around as well. So yeah, another thing I'm really liking about this. So the sun is making fantastic shadows with these railings, and I found a car that looks a bit like a sort of wild animal. It's like a zebra or something. I'm going to take a picture of that and see how it works out. And yeah, I was slightly disappointed with this when I saw it, but fortunately after taking that shot I saw this scene, and I think you'll agree that the white van with the stripes on it works a lot better. It's like a zebra, and you can actually see the railings in this shot, so I think it gives the context and makes it more understandable what's happening. And I think it's always that thing about sometimes pulling out is a really good thing to do. Again, here possibly the camera has overexposed slightly and blown out the highlights, but I actually kind of like that in this shot, and I've not tried to attempt to get those highlights back in camera raw. I don't think it's necessary here, but sometimes it is, and dynamic range is a really important factor to consider when picking a camera. Dynamic range is almost always more important than resolution, and that is something where I'm worried that this camera might let me down. We've got a lovely bright day today, so I'm able to be on base ISO of 160, and so I'm going to get the best results out of this, and even then I am worried that they won't be as good as you would have got out the G100. I think this wall with the graffiti, blue sky, dark shadows, lots of variation, lots of contrast. We'll see how it does, we'll see if it's going to be okay. And yeah, I think it's fine. I think we've actually answered that question earlier with some more complicated scenes really where the camera has succeeded well, but here without any work doing to the negative in camera raw, it's fine, straight out the can. And this one, quite a nice picture that I took straight afterwards, and that's my shadow again up against the concrete wall of the Mersey River, and the motorway behind and the tower blocks on Lancashire Hill behind that. Quite a complicated scene, perfectly rendered by this camera. And a final one, I don't think you could ask for much more filmic look out of a camera than this. And again, if we blow it up to 100%, you can see that the details there, the tones are there, there isn't any banding, there isn't any colour noise. Again, we are shooting at ISO 160, so shooting at high ISO, we might get different results. But on a good day, I think this camera is going to be just what the doctor ordered. So that's about it for now. I've got to get back into the studio, but I hope you've enjoyed that little wander around Stockport, looking at some of those pictures and listening to me pontificate about whether size matters. Of course it does. I've oversimplified. I have to justify spending the mighty sum of £75 on this new camera. It's not the highest spec camera, and if I could have a much higher resolution and a much smaller package, yes, I would have that. But this is a good compromise and I am really happy with it. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten my everyday film carrier. I'm not going to get rid of film. I love it. And that's not got the resolution of modern digital, but it's great to have. Who could ask for more than those two everyday carries? Well, I could ask one more thing, and that is, if you have got a moment, please do take the time to like, share and subscribe, because it really does help me out. It helps me continue making these videos, which I enjoy making, and I hope you enjoy watching as well. So that is it for now, but please do take care of yourselves. Until we meet again, enjoy what you're shooting. Bye for now.